Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you back to the Kortex Media Podcast, where we navigate the fast-paced world of automotive and more. Here today, I have a special guest, Cory Welsh from Genetically Engineered. Cory is a versatile and passionate electrical engineer with a rich educational background, having attended institutions such as HP Academy, Dalhousie University, and the Canadian Forces Naval Engineering School. He is currently working to launch his own venture, Genetically Engineered, as an automotive manufacturer. Cory's passion for work and developing new technologies is deeply rooted in his early experiences with motorsports and racing companies. What began as a hobby is now transforming into a defining aspect of his career, reflecting his relentless drive and commitment to advancing the industry. Cory is also planning to further his education by pursuing a master's degree in motorsport engineering. It's great to have you on, Cory.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
No worries. I'm excited for this chat and tell the audience a little bit more about what you do. So before we get into that, I just want to first start talking about your background. I touched a little bit on it in the introduction, but can you give me a little bit more in-depth look?
Well, I guess in my youth, I had family members that were into motorsports and motorsport racing and such, and so
Yeah.
I had participated largely in that case at the beginning, building drag racers, trophy trucks, and mud bogging, etc.
That's awesome.
That utilized alcohol injected big block GM engines that were just all the fun cool stuff like 1300 CFM carburetors and over the hood headers and all that kind of loud and aggressive stuff.
The fun stuff.
From there, we moved on. I moved on to with school and moving on into my life choices and such. I did participate with several race teams, doing track days and race events. Participated in driving and racing on the track, and it's expensive. An expensive
Definitely.
process, motorsport racing. And I guess the one thing when I got out of it was we were on one team, and the team we were doing well in this team, like very well.
Yeah.
And but the difference between one season and then the rule changes to the next season moved us up into a higher class, and then we weren't able to keep up anymore. And then the team's bleeding money, and then anyways they just ended up closing up shop. I just kind of moved on with myself, got into doing my own personal hobbyist kind of racing and drag racing. I built a
Awesome.
drag racing pickup truck, and just kind of going through
had
those
some fun.
processes. But you can understand the idea that that is also very expensive.
Yeah.
So, I'm an electrical engineer by trade, and I do a lot of electrical engineering in the regular industry of the regular world in my employment and such like that. But wanted to get back into doing more motorsport stuff, with the intention of maybe getting more wholesale function, cost-effective parts to make the process a little cheaper on myself.
Yeah.
I started up a business, and
Awesome.
genetically engineered vehicles is what that started out as. And the intention is that I'm kind of taking vehicles, and then we're kind of working with the internals, the DNAs of it, making it a better superhuman kind of cars.
Like technology.
Yeah, technology
More to say, yeah.
specifically that
Yeah.
in that case, and redesigned architecture in that case as well. But
That's awesome.
when you get into that process and you move forward and you grow, and then you start seeing like I can, like with this new avenue, I can do this, and I have this open up to me, and
Yeah.
I got registered as an automotive manufacturer and signed up with the Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Standards Association, and so I can actually build vehicles and VIN them for the road.
That's awesome.
so then I start down the avenue of like, well, how do we go to market? And then it just kind of grew from there.
That's awesome. So you didn't fully start with the custom car, like not the 1960s Mustangs that we'll get into in a couple minutes here. What did you specifically start with? So you said you started introducing more technology to the interiors of cars and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So what
so
exactly did that look
I've
like?
done late model Mustangs.
Hmm.
The latest body styles, '06 to '08s,
Hmm.
2015s, and such. I did 2013 F-150, and that was my last race truck that I had built. And such. Anyways, and so what I do with them is I was rebuilding the engines, to have just more expertise, more power through the
Higher
engine.
horse, yeah,
When it comes down to porting the cylinders,
yeah.
or the heads, porting the heads, boring the cylinders, new pistons, new cams, new tuning, new new shifting, new shift points and such in the tuning package and stuff. And
Hmm.
basically, as far as I could go within the Ford Motor Company's electronic package, right? Using their
Using
engine
their
control
ECU and
module,
everything.
and
Yep.
their body control module, using what the limitations are of that. Now,
Yeah.
I would say that those systems have so much potential, and you can go so far with that equipment that you don't actually start leaving that behind until you get into almost just changing out the whole vehicle.
Yeah.
When we're talking about adding sensors and trying to increase reliability and trying to get higher performance at a level where you need new safety sensors to operate at that higher level. When we're talking about NOx sensing or cylinder pressure sensing and such, and we want to go to a higher level, obviously the factory ECM only has what the factory engines use, and when you leave
Factory
those numbers
ratings.
behind, you have to get into standalone systems,
Yep.
and at that point, we're starting from a foundation, and we can do whatever we want, and so
Yeah.
let's do something that we really want.
That's awesome. So you kind of started building. So people would come to you, they'd bring their Mustang, their Ford, whatever, and you'd kind of just build it to a high horsepower machine, and do
Yeah,
all the electronic work as well.
I would say mostly friends,
Most.
and personal vehicles.
And then how did
I
that?
did. I never intended to make really money out of it, so
Yeah.
I was usually just doing it because I'm a speed freak and I like a chop idle and all that such.
Everyone,
Right?
everyone should. I
Yeah,
don't know if
everyone
everyone
should.
does, but everyone should. So before we move, I want to talk about the inspiration behind the '60s Mustangs. But before we do that, I just want to ask, what was the biggest factor that pushed you towards the motorsports and racing to begin with? You said your family was in it.
Yeah,
What pushed you to really kind of pursue the motorsports and racing end of things?
it's a hard thing to pinpoint down to the fact of it. As an engineer, I love the mechanical function. I love the sound.
Yeah.
Being 10 years old, 12 years old, being in the shop and listening to a big block like 454 fire up and inside a closed area, and just the loudness
Chop
and
away.
revving, and yeah, as we're doing timing on it, as they're doing balancing the carburetor, you just kind of it was just something that was about it that kind of
You
fed
just
through to
fell
my
in love,
soul.
fell in love with it.
And then at the racetrack and on the racetrack, long before I had a actual driver's license, didn't help with my on the road driving habits. But that speed and that excitement and that feel of being put into your seat
Definitely.
is always something that's put a smile on my face. My the race vehicles that I usually built in the past have been road-going vehicles that I've modified up well above their factory limits.
Their standards, yeah.
And so yeah, driving down the highway and just listening to the burble and the growl of the engine, blipping the RPMs when you're cruising through a tunnel or under a bridge, and just a kind of smile goes across your face.
Yeah,
It starts to hurt after a while.
It's an experience you only know if you're into cars and motorsports. I don't know how else to describe it. You did a great job of it, but
yeah,
that's
my wife, she's not into that stuff, but I guess within reason, she does let me have it.
well, there you go. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. What was the first car you built? You said you've built a couple cars of your own, obviously modifying them. What was the first? Well, let's go with what is your favorite one? What was the favorite one you built?
My 2013 F-150 to this date would have been my favorite one because I had the most into it. I could get that F-150 pickup truck to lift the tire off the ground. So it went like a bat at hell. And it went until when I was racing it, and it dropped the valve into cylinder one. And I had a Borla True Dual exhaust on it, long tube headers, Borla Attack. I had the X pipe was gone, so it was like literally True Dual, no crossover or anything. And I'm flying down the strip, and there's just a rocket thrust of steam and
smoke and
coolant, everything coming out the back tailpipe on the driver's side. That was just like, it was both impressive to see and very expensive to behold.
Yeah, I like the way you say that. That's hilarious.
Yeah. But so that would be a big one. But my first one, I would say, I started working on was my very first car, which was an '87 Escort GT. That's when I first started working on my own cars. I was young, and didn't have any money, so that car was like $200. It was a 4-cylinder high output engine that only ran on 3 cylinders. It was a 5-speed. What was nice about that car is everywhere you went, you get complimented on your Mustang because they kind of look like Mustangs.
they didn't know the difference.
Super not a Mustang.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went through. I had a couple of Ford Focuses. I had a Ranger. I modified. I had a Land Rover LR2 for a while that I modified.
Nice. That's awesome.
For friends of mine that I worked on, I did work on my brother's Trans Am, a friend's Camaro. I did work on another friend's Mustang. I did work on a couple of trucks of friends of mine and such. So there's a list of them in that case.
That's awesome. So I'm going to move back ahead again. And I just want a little overview behind the inspiration of Genetically Engineered. You kind of touched on it, but I just want to know a little bit more of the inspiration behind the 60s Mustangs, because that's kind of like the base of, or explain a little bit more about Genetically Engineered. What are you guys going to be building? Let's do an in-depth look of kind of what you guys are doing, so the audience will know, and then we'll go into the inspiration behind it and why the certain vehicles that you've chosen. So
you can probably tell, I do a lot of work on Fords.
Yeah, I could tell that.
I have a ton of education in the Ford platform. I have some in the GM platform.
Yeah,
I'm not a big GM fan, but I have a ton of education and history in the Ford platform. The Mustang is iconic in its sense of its longevity and its length in its operation and production span. It's for a lot of people, it's a picturesque kind of car, a dream car in a lot of cases for a lot of people. Going back to that original idea, like when people think about the idea of beautiful cars and dream cars and like most recognizable cars and such like that. The 60s style Mustang are in that list, always, in every list. I don't know if they're at the top of the list, but in that top 10 category, you will always see them somewhere in that list, the 60s era Mustangs, whether it's Eleanor or Bullet or any of like the 64, 65 early launch cars, the Boss 302s and such. Any in that era there was they're always going to land somewhere in there, and everyone when they hear especially when I talk about it, and I can get a little overexcited sometimes, that they get excited about that idea of I love the 60s Mustangs and such. Now
I think everyone does.
Times, yeah, I think everyone gets excited about it, but there's only a limited number of them.
Yeah.
they're slowly dying off, and though a lot of people are restoring them, that can only last for so long.
Yeah.
I want to do something that no one else is doing in the technology of this, and so I got to start from scratch because the originals aren't going to do it for me.
Yeah.
And then I do have the opportunity now in my life, as well as in the that vehicle body styles life, that I can get parts for it, and the parts I can't get, I can make or have made parts for it, so that I can properly assemble a vehicle in that case. So why I would want to go and do this for myself, the 60s era Mustang, because of the excitement of the body and that the styling, the ability I have to work on that kind of idea, and the availability of me being able to do it would be the primary function, and the reasonable cost function of it.
Yeah. Oh,
would be
awesome.
that. So I wanted to start the genetically engineered vehicles because we wanted to I wanted to be able to get that wholesale idea, because obviously it's expensive. So I needed a way of doing that. Now, I've had several businesses in the past, and I know how to manage a business and how to manage and develop a business. Though this is growing to a lot more than I've ever done in the past. That's what I started off in. The whole dream of being able to keep my hobby going, being fiscally responsible as far as building muscle cars can be.
Yeah.
And being able to have that passion and that drive. So that's how that started, that idea. It was not started with the idea that I was going to go to market with the car.
Yeah.
But it did start with that idea that I was going to want to build something special, and maybe once I was done building that and had my fun with it, and sell that and build something else, and then something new, and then once I was done with that, and build something new and such, and just keep being able to keep building vehicles and such.
Yeah.
But when I found out that there was a lot of demand, and I can do this for, let's call it, a reasonable amount of money, which is maybe, it's still a lot of money, but a reasonable amount of money, then I started thinking, like, the more I can do this, the better I can make it. And then it just kind of spiraled out of control there, and grows and grew. The idea evolved, and
that's awesome.
Now I'm
now you're here.
Now I'm here, yeah. So we're actually working on right now. The plan is this year we're going to have our new shop. We're building from the ground up a brand spanking new shop that'll let us be able to go to full production on these vehicles. And
that's in the next year. You're going to be going into full production.
This
year? Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
That's
going
exciting.
through the process. Last year, we got the lot ready. We cleared trees. We had a driveway and everything built for it. And this year, the shop is going in, and the lifts will be installed, and the dyno amazing. And all that such.
That's amazing. And you're making are you going to be manufacturing most of the parts in that shop?
Yes and no. Some parts I'll be getting that I will be custom ordering from foundries and from manufacturers of those specific parts, having the parts brought to the shop and then assembling it. So when it comes down to like the engine, as an example, I'll be bringing in a done up like a block, a cylinder block, and cranks and connecting arms and pistons and such, and then decking and assembling the full motor in our shop to produce the whole system. Our exhaust systems are going to be produced by Quicksilver, which is a British company. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No, I've never heard of
exhaust systems for Aston Martin and Rolls Royce and such.
The more luxury brands.
Yeah, so they're going to be building the exhausts for us there,
That's awesome.
and then they'll ship the exhaust to us where we'll assemble it and install it within the cars here.
Awesome.
We do have, there is a body company that does make bodies for us for sale and such, and so we have a wholesale account with them so we can buy them at distribution pricing and bring them in, and then all the carpet and the seats will all be custom done in-house. Our engine management system is Motec. And for numerous reasons, but obviously those parts are assembled by Motec, but the firmware and the tuning and the programming is all done by us in-house.
That's amazing. So you guys are getting some parts sent in, but the actual building of the car is going to all take place in the shop. That's amazing. Some
parts built in shop, but a lot of the parts will be engineered by us, but manufactured by a feeder plant that will ship it to us, and then we will properly assemble by hand in shop.
So just to give the listeners a little bit more of a visualization, so you're doing 1960s Mustangs. When we talked earlier, you said they're going to have crazy technology. There's going to be 460s. They're going to be fully emission compliant. They're all going to be VINed and licensed to the road. Can you just give a little overview so the listeners can kind of visualize what they're going to be buying if they're wanting to buy one of these cars? They're getting a 60s Mustang. You said they can pick from a few different engines. They can pick from a few different suspension classes. And can you mind just going over that a little bit?
Yeah, so I have a couple of body styles that I'm registered to do with the Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. So 3 engines, all 3 big blocks, V8s, ranging from a 427 up to a 598, a 460 in the middle. Naturally aspirated engines will have independent throttle bodies per cylinder. And then obviously the supercharger versions are Roots style supercharger with an over-the-hood air hat that sucks in through the throttle bodies on the air hat at the top.
That's awesome.
In the engine itself, let's consider a V8 engine and just chop it into 8 single-cylinder pistons. Single-cylinder engines is what they're going to actually be. So a throttle body into a fuel injector, through to a combustion cycle that uses a in-cylinder pressure sensor to detect the pressure wave inside the cylinder for a combustion cycle, and then an oxygen sensor inside the headers for the exhaust. All of it narrowed down to a standalone single-cylinder engine, and then obviously 8 of them glued together.
That's crazy.
So we will be maintaining discrete control of the airflow and fuel flow through each individual combustion chamber to manage peak performance and also maintain the best version we can of an emissions compliant vehicle.
That's amazing. So with doing that, you would have had to have done kind of all of this research on what you need to make the emissions, and you've done testing with a team, or is that just kind of?
I've done some testing. Most of it is in mathematical research on it. The engines are kind of going to be the emissions testing won't be really done until the final concept is because the emissions testing has to be done with the drivetrain and the exhaust and everything all put in place. But mathematically, it is all evaluated and confirmed.
That's crazy.
It is difficult. They are difficult, and we're not. It's not. They're not. They don't breathe out water, right? They're like
Definitely not.
They are internal combustion engines using fossil fuels, but they are, for big block V8s. Their emissions very sensitive on it.
Yeah, and you said that you wanted to make a '60s Mustang that someone could have pro stocked.
Yes.
You know, all new suspension, new sound systems. Basically, feel like you're driving it is a brand new car.
It's a brand new
but
car.
It looks like a '60s Mustang. And you said that you want them to be able to go to the track, have a good track day, and drive it home on the roads.
Yeah.
And have a bin car.
Every car that we will build will be built to the level of being able to track it. Track days, weekend warriors at the track, set good times, have good fun, and then be able to drive the thing home.
Yeah.
Every car that we built will be built to that level. We're registered with the city with the federal government as a multi-purpose vehicle. It's not a passenger car because it is set as being a vehicle that's for off-road use and on-road use. So both on the racetrack as well as on the road. We will also offer racetrack only versions. So if somebody wanted to buy a vehicle that was
just
not
drag.
Licensable for the road, we will offer that solution as well. But primarily, it's a race rated vehicle that it'll do very well on the track as well as on the road. Obviously, there's some compromises there, but it'll be a really, really nice compromise in the sense of drivability in traffic versus being able to thrash it all weekend long on the track.
That's awesome. I'm excited for you guys. One of the biggest things that some of the viewers might be asking, or the listeners might be asking, is how did you speak to the government and let the government let you do this? Because no one's ever done this before, and to go through and get all the emissions testing and the approvals to actually build these cars and move forward with it is unreal. I don't think anyone else has ever done it, and I'm guessing it was really hard. Can you speak a little bit about that process?
Yeah, it doesn't happen every day where a new automotive manufacturer shows up and starts asking questions. But the other side of it is that there's a long history of automotive safety and emissions and such that the big companies are all set well to do because they have huge factories and they have evolved their cars over time. And so incorporating all this stuff into their vehicle accurately and correctly was a lot easier for them because it happened over 50, 60 years, right? We're going to do this from the start. Now, the first trick is that when you talk to someone about a new automotive manufacturing, their first thought they go with is electric vehicles. And if electric vehicle is your thing, it's your thing. It's not our thing, and it'll never be our thing. But
there's a big difference between a V8 and an electric motor, that's for sure.
That is, yeah. And so first getting someone to, just so they can understand that this is not an electric vehicle company, because that's their first go-to, electric vehicle company. Next was using my experience in the past, and then with my contacts I have in the automotive industry. I've worked at General Motors and at Ford before and such, and knowing some of those contacts and such, I was able to figure out who I was supposed to talk to here, what I needed to do there. And then when I was reaching out to them, so now I'm talking to federal government people, specifically the Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, trying to get that. There's one person in the Canadian government who's in charge of everything. And then, so then it's you talk to them via email, phone calls. You submit documentation to them about what you're doing, and they review it. They will provide you with exceptions to some of their rules, depending on what you're doing, depending on what you're able to do, and such. So one of those exceptions that you get to deal with when you're talking to them is the difference between a high volume automotive manufacturer and a low volume automotive manufacturer. And so just to put it in a fun term, high volume automotive manufacturers have to destroy like 10 cars just to get certified for safety and such. And you know, I might not make 10 cars in a few years, right? That's a lot. So in a small volume manufacturer, low volume manufacturing, we don't have to do that, destroy cars. So we just have to provide the engineering drawings and definitions on how the vehicle will behave in certain circumstances, and then the safety Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Association, they review that and determine that function. Then they come out and view and monitor and do a walk around and do a drive of the concept car, and then they stamp it and such. Awesome. So in doing so, it's like a long process where you can get away with some of these exceptions to get away from some of those hundreds of millions of dollars investments in a car model, and they will work with you on that case. But like the high volume people, the low volume guys have to do stand up with certain safety standards and quality control standards that come along with production of a vehicle. And so there are certain things that you have to do in production of a vehicle to be registered. And when you're talking about safety, the Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Standards Association, or anything like that, it's not just about whether the car is safe. And our car is safe. It's actually a lot safer than the original 60s era Mustangs, because we've put subframes and stuff into them, but which they understand and appreciate. It's also about how the customer is cared for in the end. And I'm not a customer person, so we'll be dealing with dealer networks who will deal with customers themselves, and we'll just deal with the dealer network. But we need to be able to provide the dealer a complete breakdown on the vehicle so that they can properly care for the customer by how to disassemble this and how to reassemble that, what the lifespans are of this, and how frequently you have to service that. And then you have to provide a full breakdown on the actual parts list. So like an exploded views. I don't know if probably a lot of the listeners probably would have seen that, like in a Haynes book or something like that, like an exploded view of a part.
It shows
so we have
numbers
to provide all of
part.
that. Yeah, we have to provide it in order to maintain that. And the Canadian government will constantly review that, and they come down to the shop because you also have to maintain a standard of your shop, and so they come down usually once a year, once every couple of years, to inspect your shop to make sure that it also is meeting the safety standards and such. So there is a process.
Definitely a process.
It's not like I just tell them I'm going to do this and do it. Like you gotta like hold their hands a little bit as you walk through it when you're trying to get through this process, and then just maintain it, because you can lose your registered license easily. But if you follow the dotted lines and the black and white, then there's no problem. The only last thing I would say to that is that when you are registered in the automotive manufacturing, you get registered for a specific body line, a specific vehicle, and at a specific location, right? So if I build a registered car at shop A, I can't take that registration license and build it in shop B because I'd have to go through the whole process again for shop B. But shop
That
A
makes
has
sense.
it. If I'm building a car, registered car in shop A, I can't build a second car. I can't change the car or have a different car and do that in shop A because the registration is for that car body line, that style of car.
Specific.
You can change options like how many speakers it has, or the engine size and the power options and stuff like that. But you can't change the actual car. And if you
The body
do, you
itself.
have to get a whole new registration and go through the whole process again on it, right? So they're very specific about that. It has to be done here. Now, I could register 2 sites, and I can register as many vehicles as I want. You just have to go through the process on each one, and that process can be pricey.
Probably
take
takes a
time,
while.
years of time.
That was going to be my next question. How long have you been in the process of creating the company and creating these? How long have you been speaking to the government themselves?
2.5 years now, and it'll probably be another year to a year and a half before it's
ready for the
legally allowed
road.
to sell something.
Wow. That's a process. That's definitely a process.
It's a process. I could probably do it a little bit quicker if I was well-to-do or high volume, but honestly, for me, I'm just a normal person. I come from a family that didn't have a lot of money, and so I put every penny of mine into this, and so it's not like I have like a trust fund to take from. So I have to do everything in pace and in time and do stuff like that. But that's the timeline it takes, and that's okay because I feel 100% that once I get this car to market, people are going to want it, they're going to want to see it, and they're going to want to be a part of it.
That's awesome. I think it's going to be a huge impact on the automotive industry itself because I know there's a lot of people that want a 60s Mustang and they want to resto mod it, but they have the money to buy it and do it all up. But then they have to get a shop to do that, and then they have to work with a shop to resto mod it, and then they have to wait for the time to do that. Or if they come to you, they're getting that car brand new, fully spec'd at basically how they want it built. And I think everyone's just going to be happy. It just makes it easier for the customer that way. Do you have some contracts lined up with some customers? Like if you spoke to some people?
Dealers wise, yes, dealers.
Dealers wise, but not.
Dealers, we're not going to be selling to customers directly because I can't service and stuff to customers everywhere. I have to be able to rely on a dealer network. So yes, we have been working with dealers on trying to manage inventory and manage volume, annual volume that we can go for, and then manage a price point for the dealers and a price point for the dealer customer, and then obviously the dealers have their say in that part too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But
it is an interesting avenue to go down, and everyone does get excited. I think when we talk about the idea of the resto mods and such that a lot of people are aware of when it comes down to classic muscle cars, pony cars, any of those kind of old box style trucks and stuff like that, the big issue that most people have is reliability and hassle and inconvenience that comes with that, right? And so we've taken a car that was designed to be with like a inline 6-cylinder or a 302 V8 or something like that, and then try and modify it in order to fit a new engine, maybe a 5-liter Coyote or I don't know why you'd put maybe you could put an EcoBoost in it or something like that, but whatever you're putting into it, an LS engine, there's going to always be compromises, and some people are going to have a hard time with that because it's never going to work quite right. In the cold, it's not going to start properly, and it's going to have reliability issues that break down and leave them stranded on the side of the road. But if they went to just a restored car, then that's going to have issues on its own, right? Choking the throttle body or the carburetor in order to make sure that the engine just stays running when it's cold, and pumping the gas just to get it started. And a lot of people I've talked to is that they would love a car like that, but they don't want the hassle. They want that car, but they want the reliability and comfort and longevity of a new car. And so that's what we're trying to put together. A car that is architecturally very classic looking, classic sounding, classic kind of engine, but very modern in the way that it's produced. So fuel injected, dog engagement gearboxes, independent four-wheel suspension, disc brakes all the way around, electronically controlled shock absorbers and four-wheel suspension, ABS, traction control, heaters, air conditioning, offering a nice sound system to put in there, though we don't foresee that as being a primary thing for people, because usually people in a car like this don't want to hear the exhaust kind of idea.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
An active exhaust system, so an ability to have the car behave quietly in certain scenarios, but also speak up when you want it to, so that the exhaust opens up. And so there's a plethora of abilities there that make it a new car, but look and sound and feel like an old car. When I say feel, I mean the touch of it, not necessarily the suspension. The suspension will be very new. No roll, anti-roll bars in it, stabilizers, none of that. The tires are 100% independent from each other.
That's amazing.
Utilizing the active shock absorbers to stiffen or loosen the system to prevent body roll, to prevent any lift in the tires, but also to maintain a smooth and consistent drive down the road. In Canada, we don't have the greatest of roads.
No, we definitely don't. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Did you specifically design the suspension itself, or is that something still in the works?
I specifically designed it. There's a couple of things that I'm still trying to adjust with the concept on the idea of the roll center and the center of gravity and the roll center in the vehicle, and how the suspension handles. Also, the vehicle height from the road. So obviously we want it low so that it can perform, but we also want it able to absorb speed bumps and potholes as well, without
scraping
bottom it off. So we are in the process of making some adjustment designs on for height adjustment within the vehicle, a mechanical height adjustment within the vehicle, so we can raise the vehicle up to like a standard Mustang ride height, and then lower it down to more of a performance ride height in that case. But the trick that we're trying to get through right now is when you talk about the engineered lines of the suspension, the lower control arms and the upper control arms, and making sure that the wheel stays in the right place via the toe, via the camber of the tires when we're traveling through two various ride height areas. And so aerodynamics is not a concern when we're talking about driving up at the standard ride height, because it's just like a comfort thing for going down the road. Aerodynamics is a concern when we're down at the bottom, so we want to make sure that the aerodynamics are set for maximum downforce on the front and the back when we're at the lowest level.
Definitely.
And but we also get great tire patch contact on the road at both heights, and depending on what you're doing in those two heights to make sure
So you're
that
not.
the vehicle is stable. If you're doing 120 kilometers an hour, you should be able to do 120 kilometers an hour in both heights down the road. If you're in an area that accepts 120 kilometers an hour, that is, and you should be able to do that in both modes on the road function and be comfortable without having the vehicle walking on the road or feeling light or top heavy kind of idea.
So if you do that, when you lower the vehicle, is it? And you said you don't want to change the camber.
No.
How is that actually like you lower the body of the, or I guess you're lowering the body, but usually when you do that you get camber, obviously, and they'll wear your tires weird. How are you going to lower it? I just want to know how that actually works, because I'm a car guy myself. So
No, that's okay. So the idea is it comes down to the center line adjustment in the knuckle between the upper control arm and the lower control arm, and the pivot point from the suspension and how you are physically changing the length, right? And so you could say that if you don't adjust the camber when you are traveling through the suspension travel point, you would be adjusting the wheel track between the tires, as the tires will travel themselves through an arc as the suspension goes up and down. But you can adjust it so that depending on when you're dealing with two fixed points, you can set it so that when you're at one point, it's going to be this. And when you're at that point, you can have everything adjusted to make it this. It takes some engineering to plan that out. You gotta make sure that it's planned out correctly. But when you offer just those two, you can balance it between those two.
Okay.
If we were to make it infinitely adjustable between the two heights, then you would be out to lunch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was gonna, because I just wanted to ask that question to get a little bit more.
It's a common thing, and it is tricky, and that's why we are spending a bit of time trying to get through this, because it's not just changing the ride height of the vehicle. It's also making sure that it's whatever we use to change the ride height of the vehicle can be packaged appropriately to fit into a vehicle, can function reliably, and is set in a way that if it does travel and it sets those two spots, that when you get to those two spots, that it is a fixed point, right? And so if I was to bolt something onto something, that'd be a fixed point that I can work with. But now we're talking about moving something. So when we're moving something, we want to make sure that in its two resting positions, it is it might as well be considered a fixed point, so that we're not worried about, as the suspension is taking on hits from potholes and bumps and speed bumps, whatever, that the adjustment is not moving on you. It's staying firm in that location.
Return to the same spot, front and back, side to side, so you're not getting that changes. I like that.
Well,
that's a great idea.
It is an engineering fix that we are going through, but it is the latest change that we are making to the design internally that is going to, I think, give us the best. Nobody wants to see a vehicle on stilts. So for presentation mode, we may want to be able to drive the car on the road at the low performance ride height area and just leave it there. Leave it there all the time, and then just raise it up for when you need to. And then some people like a little bit taller. It's easier for them to get in and out of, etc. And they want it just left up a little bit higher because that's how they want it, and it should be able to ride there all the time. But it is something that we are working on. There is the idea of, with the ride height sensing, for us to be able to change the not the spring rate, but the bounce and debounce and for high speed and low speed on the shock absorbers, so that they can handle, maybe when it's up a little bit higher, we're talking about a more comfortable ride versus when it's down lower and it's a bit more stiffer. So there's some of those things that we are working with in that case.
There's a lot of factors.
Yeah. There's a lot to do about it. It's
That's awesome.
every single piece. A car driving down the road is a million pieces.
Yeah.
Hopefully, getting to the destination at the same time. But the every part of it has to be evaluated, and then not just evaluated, but you have to be able to represent that part to a dealer so that they could properly service that part down the road, and then you must be able to recreate it. I'm not talking about building one car. Some of these shops that build one car for a customer and they just send it out the road. That's easy. You built a car, you did a great job, it looks amazing, you send it out the road. You get another customer doing another car, you build that car, you send it out the road. I'm talking about our ability to be repetitive, to build one car and then build it again the same.
And again.
Build it again the same, and then yet again the same. And that's what it really comes down to, because it's not just putting a bolt through a frame or into upper control arm. It's also about, when does that bolt go in during the manufacturing state.
The process
it's
of
torque
putting
numbers,
everything together.
how do we do quality control on that bolt, and then how do we repeat that effort on the next car?
No, it's going to be a big process, but I'm really excited for you guys. I think everyone in the automotive industry is going to love it. But that brings me to my next question: what is your opinion on the older style V8 60s Mustangs lover? What do you think their opinion's going to be on your new Resto Mod, brand new 60s Mustang?
I think that those individuals, resto mods are a common occurrence now, and a lot of them get bent out of shape about it, or are comfortable with it because they like to see the cool new, or just taking a barn find, would have otherwise been dead car, and then reviving new life into it and putting it out on the road. So in the resto mod or the restored version, there are going to be two ends of that field. I think that where the only struggle we should have on it is just getting it beyond the understanding of them to say, this is not a Ford Mustang. This is not a resto mod.
Genetically
car.
Engineered.
Yeah, this is a genetically engineered Mustang, and it's from the ground up, brand new, and we're just inspired by the Ford Mustang.
I like
group.
that. That's a great explanation.
And so we're not here to tamper or manipulate the history in any way.
Yeah.
We're here to take inspiration from the history and make something great.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a great spoke. I think that if I ever speak about this to anyone, I say, and they're a 60s Mustang lover that loves all original, that's what I'm going to tell them. It's not a Mustang. It's genetically engineered.
Yeah. And it's new.
Yeah, it's brand new.
Brand new.
One last question for you. Looking back on your journey in the automotive space, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned? Obviously, from building cars to now manufacturing cars and being an engineer in the space. What advice would you give people entering the automotive space right now?
It's a long process, and you need to find a way to stay engaged and motivated in the process. If you set yourself an exciting goal of rolling your first car off the line, it's going to take you years to satisfy that goal. Break it down into small pieces, achievable goals that are exciting, right? I'm not saying I had a great day today. First step, put pants on. Check. I'm not saying that, but when it comes down to having your goals, saying like, get in front of the safety standards committee, discuss what is needed, come up with your plan, design this part of it, break it down into small parts, and then that will give you that fuel or that food that you need to get to the end target. Because if you had to rely on that victorious feeling of rolling a car off the line, you'll lose interest, lose hope, lose faith in the process.
Definitely. That's a
It's just
great
too big of a
explanation.
thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Even just building a car, not even manufacturing a car, but even building your own car in the shop. I have built a couple cars myself now. I'm a Volkswagen guy, so I can't relate with the Mustangs. But the cars that I've built, you think it's gonna take a year. 3 years later, you're like, yeah, it'll take a year, and then you'll wait another 5 years. Eventually, it gets done. You just need to go through the process, go slow, and just make sure it gets done properly.
Yeah,
And that's
and
the fun of the automotive, of building automotive.
yeah, get yourself excited about the little parts, because that'll
Definitely.
be what helps you get through to the next part.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, when it comes down to the automotive manufacturing side, it's very bureaucratic, and there's things I have to deal with the province. There's things I have to deal with the municipality. There's things I have to deal with the federal government, and you know, none of these people are pleasant to deal with.
Definitely.
But
Definitely.
they're the key masters or the gatekeepers, and you have to get to them, and you have to create relationships with them, and so it's
Yeah.
a long process. So look at the little
Sure.
victories to help you get through.
I like that. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Nope, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You've taught me so much. Our listeners are going to learn so much. And honestly, I didn't know myself that you could actually become your own vehicle manufacturer until I heard about what you're doing, and I'm honestly truly inspired for what you're doing, building brand new cars, all basically meant for the track, but road worthy as well. Like you don't hear about that at all. So I'm very glad I got to talk to you about your process and kind of everything you've been through, and I'm excited to see the vehicle when it's finished up.
Yeah, well, I'll
So I'm
keep you in mind, and so when we do our concept rollout, I'll reach out to you.
Definitely, I hope to have you on again.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah, thanks, Cory.